Good morning. Welcome to Chalice Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a community of diverse beliefs and experiences, nurturing the liberal religious spirit and united by our desire to grow in love and in service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, you are welcome here. Whether you gather with us every Sunday, once or twice a year, or are here with us this morning for the first time, we are glad you are here online. I'm Reverend Sharon Wiley, Chalice's minister. Our worship musician this morning is our music director, Tim McKnight, and our audiovisual technician, whom we're very grateful for, is Stuart Holmes. Our service this morning honors Earth Day, celebrated around the world on April 22nd to demonstrate support for environmental protection. This year is the 50-year anniversary of Earth Day observances. Welcome to our online worship service. Let me orient you a little bit to this experience. Whether you have a microphone or not, you are muted and you cannot unmute yourself during this time together. You are also not visible, so you don't need to worry that anyone can hear what you're saying or see what you're doing wherever you are. If you get a notice that pops up during the service that says internet unstable, that means that your internet is unstable. If that happens, you might want to turn off other devices that are using Wi-Fi in your home to help stabilize your connection. If my internet becomes unstable, or if Stuart's internet becomes unstable, which hasn't happened yet, but we like to be prepared, or if Zoom crashes, again, that hasn't happened to us, but you never know. Those are the things that could disrupt our worship this morning. So if any of that happens, try not to be too stressed out about it. Just sit tight with your screens up and we'll see if we can get back on track. So these welcoming words are me standing at the door to this gathering and greeting you. And since I can't hug you myself, I'd like to invite you to all hug ourselves, or if you have someone with you, hug that person. A big hug of hello and welcome. Good morning. So, as many of you know and are using already, we have a chat. You have a button on your menu that says chat, and this is where we talk to each other and do some sharing during the service. So the first thing I'm going to put into the chat, well, it's not the first thing because we've been talking, what I'm going to put in the chat is a link to our online connection card. There we go. If you are new to the congregation, and we have several people who have been new joining us online for online worship. If you're new and you would like to receive our email announcements, filling out that online connection card is how you get onto our email list. And then on our email list, you can get information about other Zoom gatherings that happen during the week. We aren't posting a lot of that information on our website because there are troublemakers out there, but we share it on our email list. Also, if you're a regular attendee at Chalice, if you're a member and you have a question you would normally submit on a connection card, or if you have any change in your contact information, you can also use that online link to turn in that information, and we'll get our information updated. I'm also going to provide my email address. There it is. So if you have would like to ask for a prayer request from me, or if you have any confidential information that you'd like me to know, these are the kinds of things you can email me, and I'll read them privately after the service. So let's go ahead and open up the chat box if you haven't. And so you'll see me posting this sometimes. You want to make sure to share with everybody that you've used the little blue drop-down menu to select panelists and attendees. If you only post to panelists, then it's only me and Stuart who are reading them. And maybe there's sometimes something you want to tell us, but in general, we want to be having a group conversation. So make sure you're using panelists and attendees. So now let's take time for our morning greetings. We'll see who's here, say hello to each other. If this is your first time with us and you'd like us to know that, feel free to share that. And where you are this morning, we'd like to hear if you're willing to share that. So we'll take a minute while we enjoy some music. This morning, we invited the Bergamini Zapata family to light the chalice. Our chalice lighting words come from Reverend Lynn Harrison. Committed to respond to the call of a wounded world, we join together this day with loving hearts, hands, and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth. We light a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. The words of our call to worship come from the Reverend Evan Carville Zemer. If we lived in another climate, our souls might speak other languages. We might speak oasis or permafrost, dry season or monsoon. But our souls speak spring. Our souls speak green shoots pushing through last year's leaves. Our souls speak flower buds stretching to sun. Our souls speak mud puddle and nest building, damp earth and worm castings, tiny green leaves and frog choruses. We speak spring because spring sings in us. We gather to nurture our faith in our own growing, our own courage to push through, our own blossoming and beauty, our own small part of the spring in this world. Let us worship together. I invite you to join in singing.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate lives will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gathered in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
If you have a sorrow you would like to share with the community this morning, you can share it in the chat box. We won't share these out loud, but please feel free to respond to each other in the chat. This is our time for sorrows. We'll share joys a bit later on, and we'll listen to some music. And if you have a candle in your own home that you would like to light, now is the time. May our sorrows be lessened. May our burdens be lightened. In sorrow and challenge, may we know ourselves always held and never alone. May we act to extend our warmth to all who are hurting in our wider world. And now a story. Our storyteller this morning is Julia Fogel.
Our story today is Life, written by Cynthia Rylant and illustrated by Brendan Wenzel. Life begins small. Even for elephants. Then it grows. Beneath the sun and the moon. Life grows. Ask any animal on earth, what do you love about life? The hawk will say sky. The camel will say sand. The snake will say grass. The turtle may remain quiet. It has seen much in its 100 years, but the turtle loves life. How could it not, with so much rain on its back? Life is not always easy. There will probably be a stretch of wilderness now and then. But wilderness eventually ends. And there is always a new road to take. Remember this, in every corner of the world, there is something to love. And something to protect. And if one day it seems nothing beautiful will ever come your way again, trust the rabbit in the field and the deer who crosses your path. Trust the wolf and the wild geese who find their way back home. All these know something about life, that everything is changing. And it is worth waking up in the morning to see what might happen. Because life begins small and grows. The end.
Our reading is from a March 20th article by Natasha Daly on nationalgeographic.com. She writes, scattered amid a relentless barrage of news about COVID-19 case surges, quarantine orders, and medical supply shortages on Twitter, some happy stories softened the blows. Swans had returned to deserted Venetian canals, dolphins too, and a group of elephants had sauntered through a village in Yunnan, China, gotten drunk off corn wine, and passed out in a tea garden. These reports of wildlife triumphs in countries hard hit by the novel coronavirus got hundreds of thousands of retweets. They went viral on Instagram and TikTok. They made news headlines. If there's a silver lining of the pandemic, people said, this was it. Animals were bouncing back, running free in a humanless world. But it wasn't real. The swans in the viral posts regularly appear in the canals of Burano, a small island in the greater Venice metropolitan area, where the photos were taken. The Venetian dolphins were filmed at a port in Sardinia, in the Mediterranean Sea, hundreds of miles away. No one has figured out where the drunken elephant photos came from, but a Chinese news report debunked the viral posts. While elephants did recently come through the village in Yunnan province, China, their presence isn't out of the norm. They aren't the elephants in the viral photos, and they didn't get drunk and pass out in a tea field. The phenomenon highlights how quickly eye-popping, too good to be true rumors can spread in times of crisis. People are compelled to share posts that make them emotional. When we're feeling stressed, joyous animal footage can be an irresistible salve. The spread of social phenomena is so powerful, 2016 research shows, that it can follow the same models that trace the contagion of epidemics. I think people really want to believe in the power of nature to recover, says Susan Clayton, a professor of psychology and environmental studies at the College of Worcester in Ohio. People hope that no matter what we've done, nature is powerful enough to rise above it. About half of Americans say they've been exposed to made-up news or information related to coronavirus, according to a new Pew Research Center survey. While a fake happy news story about dolphins in a canal may not be all that problematic, relatively speaking, there can still be harm in spreading false hope in times of crisis. Erin Vogel, a social psychologist and postdoctoral fellow at Stanford University, says, these fake feel-good stories can make people even more distrustful at a time when everyone already feels vulnerable. Finding out good news isn't real can be even more demoralizing than not hearing it at all. Spots of hope on social media are likely to play a key role in keeping spirits up in the weeks and months ahead as people self-quarantine in their homes and connect with each other through screens. I'd encourage people to share positive things, says Vogel, but it doesn't have to be anything dramatic. It just has to be true. I invite you to join in singing.
One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Earth Day 2020, an Earth Day we'll always remember. From now on, 2020 will always be the year we learned that we really are able to make enormous sweeping changes to what we do and how we function. Our reading this morning cautions us against the impulse to believe everything we read. It would be nice to imagine that it's possible for nature to heal after a month or so of quarantine time. Our problems are not that simple to solve. But there are benefits already to so many of us staying off the roads. As the San Diego Union Tribune reported yesterday, oxides of nitrogen, one of the key air pollutants and a precursor to smog, is down by about 20 to 30% during peak commute hours at sites in Chula Vista and El Cajon for the month of March compared to last year, according to preliminary data from the San Diego Air Pollution Control District. That's a significant drop. The article goes on to report that these declines in San Diego County mirror those observed in other parts of the country and world during the pandemic closures. Scientists measured drops in the pollutant over China and Italy as those countries shut down earlier this year. Researchers also found that carbon monoxide levels plunged by half in New York City, and greenhouse emissions fell slightly during the coronavirus shutdown of that city. According to a system that tracks vehicle traffic through smartphone location apps, the stay-at-home order that was issued on March 19th in California, after that, vehicle traffic plunged by 80% compared to the start of the month. Improved air quality comes at a particularly important moment as we are battling an illness that attacks the respiratory system. Before this, telecommuting had not been pushed very hard as an important strategy in addressing climate crisis. But I think it's very likely that many of the new habits we are building now will continue to serve us well once this crisis is over. We should drive less if we can. We should consider carefully whether or not we need to meet in person, requiring multiple people to get into their cars to go somewhere. We should try to minimize little trips to the grocery store into one bigger trip every couple of weeks. Conferences and conventions should consider whether or not they really need to happen in one physical location, and if they need to happen every year. And by driving less, we've gained more time at home, time for walks, time for a slower pace for many of us. Quarantining ourselves is not relaxing. I don't mean to suggest that. And I want to give a particular shout out to our parents with young children for whom this doesn't really feel like a time of doing less at all. But I do just want to lift up that of all of the things that are hard about this time, I haven't heard lots of people complaining that they miss driving to work. And for people who still do need to drive, there is, of course, much less traffic. Air quality researchers are watching and tracking what is happening globally as countries impose travel restrictions. Planes, trains, and cars are all moving less. They are learning and will continue to learn much about the impacts of our staying at home on pollution. And what we learn now will help contribute to new plans for addressing the climate crisis going forward. We shared our sorrows earlier in the service, and now it's time for our joys. If you have a joy you would like to share with the community this morning, now is the time to share in the chat box. Again, we won't be sharing these out loud, but we can respond to each other in the chat. And this is the time for joys. Again, we'll listen to music. And if you have a candle in your own home you would like to light for joys, now is the time. May our joys be multiplied. May we act to extend our warmth to all who are rejoicing in our wider world. Our Sunday offering is an expression of the generosity that makes congregational life possible. As Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg writes, generosity is characterized by the inner quality of letting go or relinquishing. Being able to let go, to give up, to renounce, to give generously, these capacities spring from the same source within us. When we practice generosity, we open to all of these liberating qualities simultaneously. We invite you to text your donation to Chalice. If you haven't texted a donation before, know that once you text the amount, you'll get a reply with a link to follow to enter your credit card information. And if you've already entered that information previously when you've made a donation, then you don't need to enter it again after that. I hope you will give generously. Please join in dedicating our offering with words of affirmation. Open hearts, open minds, open doors, nurturing spirits, seeking justice within the wider world. This is our mission. If there is some blessing to come from this pandemic and quarantine, may it be that we truly understand what it means to be part of the interdependent web of all existence. How many of us stay at home, and how many of us gather in groups to protest having to stay at home? These choices have impacts on the entire community. These choices impact how many people will get sick and how many hospital beds will be available. These choices impact whether or not our healthcare workers are able to work safely, which impacts the care that will be available to us should we need it. What I buy at the store impacts what is left for you to buy at the store. If the person walking ahead of me in the neighborhood stops to take a photo, I stop too, or I cross the street and continue a different way. I could go on and on. Despite being social animals, humans have been slow, or maybe it's particularly Americans who are slow to understand what it is to be a collective. We are so preoccupied by our individual uniqueness and our individual rights, and so disinterested in the common good. When I think about the journey we are on now, and how far we have ahead of us to get where we're going, and I'm not sure we feel at all clear about how and where this particular journey ends, and that not knowing has to be okay right now. When I think about this journey we're on, I am inspired by the strategies of migrating geese. You know how they travel, yes? As is described on reference.com, the geese fly in V-shaped formations. Experts believe that they do so to conserve energy. The goose in front expends the most energy and splits the air currents as it flies. When it tires, it moves to the back of the formation and the next goose takes over. The geese fly both day and night. The long migration poses many dangers. Inclement weather, heavy fog, and hunting threaten the safety of migrating geese. Starvation and exhaustion also take a toll. That's the end quote from that section. When one leader gets tired, they change positions and another leader steps forward. Every individual has the potential to be a leader and take their turn at the front. By doing so, they travel much farther, much faster than any one of them could travel on their own. By working together toward the same goal, they travel much farther, much faster than any one of them could on their own. May all humanity at long last learn this lesson.
We sail above the weather. We search the ocean floor. We rival our creation, still yearning for more. But can we fly together?
Let's take a breath together. May you go forward knowing that life is fragile and a gift, that you are lovable and loved, and you are not alone. Love and blessings to each of you. I hope you will join us after the service at coffee hour. We'll put a link to the coffee hour in the chat box, and you are invited to close our time together by singing the well.